Hello, everybody. So I wrote this paper. I'm not going to read it all literally, but it's called Coping with Imprisonment, the Meaning of the Burma-Thailand Railway in Collective Memory. So the Burma-Thailand Railway was a source of lots of oral testimonies, which is a topic that today was surprisingly very actual in this today's seminar, so that's pretty nice. And it was from the Burma-Thailand Railway that came a lot of testimonies from POWs, prisoners of war, like in the movie Bridge on the River Kwai, which might have been the reason that their situation was maybe well known or spoke to the imagination of people, which might be related to why it was so popular, why it was made into a movie, and this movie became very popular, and therefore the situation of the prisoners of war instantly became incredibly well known. But from this perspective of the screenwriter, I would say, of the famous Hollywood movie, the big budget production with Alec Guinness and Sisue Hayakawa. So this movie is about British prisoners in a camp. Well, I think we should watch a fragment at least. It's a great movie, but maybe a little decontextualized, I thought, because maybe we can switch the lights back. Okay. It's a little bit like we don't know if these are real Japanese values or whatever, or if this is a realistic conflict between him and the code and his steadfastness for the British autonomy in the camp. It might, it seems not really to matter if this is very accurate. But it is a little abstract. The story, I thought it had because the two scriptwriters were on the McCarthy's list, so to speak. McCarthy, who prosecuted Marxists and people with red backgrounds. So there are a lot of those. There's this really. There is a big story behind it that maybe is more important than the historical setting. And I think that perhaps the original author of the book on which it is based and the scriptwriters themselves were attracted to the decontextualized bridge in the middle of the jungle, because then they could use that for telling a more abstract story. And then so there's a dynamic between the Japanese, who seem to lose their power and control over the project because the British are more capable of actually constructing a bridge, which I think is a Marxian thing. And Nicholson's, which is the British officer, he has no real moral reason for doing it. Almost, he says, like, yes, now it will help the enemy, and later it will help someone else. That is almost his reason. But the suffering connected to completing the task at all costs seems its own justification. Okay, so I thought I should contrast this with the perspective of an oral historic, oral history kind of thing that's done by the Dutch, because the Dutch had a history also with the Pacific theater of the World War II. They used to control Indonesia, which they used to call the jewel of the kingdom, which was exactly what we just talked about. The colonial era Dutch, they saw it, they lost Indonesia, and it was the end of a dream. Like, we were going to build railroads and whatever. They would fall in with our train of progress and whatever. But also with when America became the world's policeman, maybe after the World War II, they also pressured the Dutch to not try to control Indonesia, which they did do. Policing actions, they were called euphemistically, against the nationalists in Indonesia, but couldn't do that. The Americans didn't let it anymore. Okay, so we have to go to a documentary. It is in Dutch, so that's why I've included a kind of a line out, which is on page 3 to 6. It's nothing special, but the documentary is nothing special either. And I think when we just talked about how these documentaries work, and I think that where we're going, we don't need language anymore. We can just look at the documentary, and you will see people, veterans from the Dutch colonial army who were in prison, just like those British soldiers, and they talk about their experience with the Japanese in the prison camps. These things are also called lieux de mémoire, when they go back to visit these places. I know it's a French term, but it's very much a lieu de mémoire kind of presentation. They go with these men to places they remember and places of remembrance. So I'm not sure if that is the best way to present the oral history. I mean, I thought the other presentation that we just saw was a little bit more realistic, like with women sitting at home being interviewed. The Dutch television also made a movie about Indonesian comfort women, and whenever they're just presented in a row, being interviewed in Indonesian with subtitles, of course. And that might be a better, more honest kind of presentation, but it is also a bit more slick. I mean, this is nice because it is a cheap kind of documentary. It might just sometimes, but in some ways it's more honest because these old men just speak to the camera like they would to their families. So those are some thoughts. And the reason that it's interesting to contrast this with the bridge on the River Kwai is because that when an artistic rendition of a historical story, artists might be inclined to say, I'm proud I'm working with a little bit of material, like a few snippets of information, a few interviews with veterans, and I can make a gripping story. By making it a little abstract, it will live on through the ages or whatever. And these kind of stories are probably going to fade quicker, but they might also it's kind of the way history also works. Like the sources, they contribute to a more detailed view of the history, but because they want to be accurate, they destroy each other also. So a story like the River Kwai, it has persisted to this day. Everybody, lots of people at least, think of POW camps when they think of the River Kwai and the bridge. Even though it may not have been that accurate a depiction. So, right, that's what I wanted to say.
Where are the different cemeteries you showed? At least two different. Where are they?
I think they are in Thailand.
In Thailand. The other one too, we saw before.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear him say that they were not in Thailand. I think I read some of them are in Thailand.
Okay.
Questions?
Yes.
Can you say more about the movie? There was more like a question related to the people who wrote the script and the time maybe it was not. That was, if it was not giving an accurate picture of the camp, like where the more abstract question, not general question.
Where the inaccuracies lie? The inaccuracies?
No, not the inaccuracies, but what they wanted to show. It was not an accurate picture of the camp, but what was their point.
Right, the bridge.
Yeah, on the bridge.
I said a few things. I think they wanted to show a little bit, conflict. Like you begin with you begin with a situation in which the Japanese are in power, but because the workforce is ultimately, I think it was kind of a Marxist thing, you see. So, because the workforce knows more and can actually get things done, in the end the Japanese are reduced to a sort of thing. So, yeah. I thought that maybe the issues.
I forgot a lot about the movie. That's why I wanted to.
Oh yeah. Okay, you just want the big storyline. Yeah. Still, I can give you the storyline. The men escape. The big crew English arrives. They have to build a bridge, but they can't get it done under the Japanese regime. So meanwhile, it's a complicated story. But it's a very good movie, so you can just watch it again.
It's well, I think it's first we have to remember it's a film by Lady Lee Lawrence, already shot, also shot Lawrence. So making as a director, making building stories. Okay, and the plot is very clever. It's from a novel written by a French writer, Pierre Boulle. It's clever because there are two levels, let's say. One level is about cultural patterns, a bit in the style of the standard work on this Japan's cultural pattern of Benin, presenting and so on. So this is what we heard from the Japanese Kono in the clips you showed. According to our patterns, you British prisoners lost your honor because you accepted defeat and instead of fighting to death, you just surrendered. It's a shame, so you are not soldiers anymore. You are just prisoners, and okay, we can make out of what we want out of. So this is the alleged Japanese pattern on honor, military honor, which is, of course, a very westernized view of the thing, because it's maybe not so simple. But on the other hand, the film is presenting the reverse angle on it. That is the British view, the Western view. What is the Western view? It is, no, it's not like that, because we have a strategic view on the war. We lost a battle, but the war is not over. So what matters is stamina, endurance. Okay, now we are the defeated part, but we will do our best to survive. And then time, we will see. Time will do. Things will change. You will see. So, okay, now you can beat us, humiliate us, offend us, but okay, you will see. And in the course of the film, the British win in this conflict of patterns and values, which is simplified, oversimplified in terms of Western values against Eastern values. They win for the reason you said. That is the Japanese way. That is, you will be our slaves and you will build the bridge under our conditions. It doesn't work. Because the Japanese engineer and the army, they have not the capacity to direct the British workers, slaves actually. So it fails constantly. So they have to grant, to give some kind of autonomy to the British. And the British colonel says, okay, we will show you. If we let us do it our way, we will show you. We can build the bridge. So, okay, if we take things at this level, this oversimplified. We have this oversimplified version of the superiority of Western capitals on this stupid code of Bushido, honor and honesty. But the film is more sophisticated than that, because there is a trap in the dynamic of the, let's say, the use or the implementation of Western values. Because the British colonel is becoming the hostage of his own pride as he's building the bridge. And he completely forgets that he's, at a certain moment, there's a turning point in the film, he completely forgets that he's working for the enemy and building a wonderful bridge which is of strategic importance for the enemy. And at the same time, there is a commando of an elite commando I don't remember, American, I think maybe soldiers, who are sent to bust out the bridge, to destroy the bridge. And it's something which the British colonel cannot stand, that is beautiful, it should be blown up. And okay, this is, I would say, the rather cheerful aspect of the plot in the film. Because this turn at the end. So, okay, he's desperate, the British man is desperate because his toy is being destroyed by his lies. So it's a beautiful plot. But what we have to say before all is that the reason why this film became so popular is the music. This is it's on the power of music in movies. This is the classic example. This is why everybody remembers the film. Okay, the issue of war prisoners, okay, you're right, you stress that it may become popular. But what remains is the music before war. As, I don't know, what you mean first.
Comment about like music. Yeah, it's really suitable for many scenes that the music is played. It's really accurate, but there was also the notion that it's not discussed, but it's military. It's mentioned here in the movie that one of the soldiers asked, why do we do this? And then the question was to the officer of British troops, and they just like it is of the most important thing to keep the soldiers occupied, and that to occupy it gives them some object to release their energy to, and it's a means of also controlling it. Okay, the thing is that the officer want to build a really nice, beautiful bridge, but it's also of high importance to keep the soldier occupied, and they won't be rebellions and everything. That's a basic military thing, is to keep, that's been throughout the history, one of the most important things, to keep the soldiers occupied so that they don't have energy to argue anymore about why to do these things, why should we obey, and what to do, and it's mentioned here in the movie, and given a little bit of importance, but I was not noted here in this presentation.
Well, the film is staging an opposition between two forms of discipline. The Japanese discipline, which is like some kind of a terror, and the Western version of discipline, which is much more humane. It's discipline, basically, it remains military discipline, of course. But the British officer cares very much about the life of every of his subordinate, of his men. He's it's like in the Bible, the shepherd and the flock. He cares about every element which belongs to the flock. The Japanese way in the film, in reality, I don't know, but in the film it's much more, say, brutal, simple, and harsh. Maybe you have noticed, it's funny, that the Japanese Ono did the same as the officer, the same actor, as in Negulesco's film. He was everywhere. I mean, all the Western films as the Japanese officer. You saw him, maybe, I don't remember, we showed this clip in Eternity, from Eternity to Hell, at the end, the general, he was a permanent guest in Western films to play the brutal general Japanese officer.
I did watch the scene with the guy shot
So, in Geisha Boy,
Yeah.
yes, maybe some of you remember in Geisha Boy too. Yes.
It was weird because Jerry Lewis walks away, and then suddenly there's a face of Alec Guinness like looking at him like, what are you doing?
Yes.
You're going with him.
Yes. Your face is familiar.
Yeah.
No?
I have a small question about how history is taught in the Netherlands, about this particular part of Dutch history.
Okay.
Not just the Republic or
Why is not taught?
yeah, but I mean in terms of colonization of Indonesia, for example, or
Yes.
their presence here?
Yes. Well, it's treated kind of like I said. I mean, I also watched public television makes all kinds of documentaries. So when they talk about this, it's often a little bit apologetic, I think, but not really, because they didn't officially apologize. So they always say like that they went back afterwards. That is the big problem, really. So, but about the years before, they just say everybody thought that they could help the Indonesians, but it's never said how successful exactly. But I think they try to stress the positive parts, because the history, at least at the high school, is a little nationalistic still, not very, but I mean, maybe it is very, I can say. But they do have they do tend to say, without the Dutch, there wouldn't have been Koreans, and that wouldn't have been.
You see?
Yeah.
Should be grateful.
Say thank you for your friends.
No, you didn't have to say thank you.
Really? So it would be common to stress the positive aspects.
I think they do like to stress the positive aspect, and they do not make a reverse angle very explicit. I think, but they do always do a little bit like. But they thought something else, and the nationalists really wanted to get rid of the Dutch, because they really thought that the Dutch were really not good. Yeah. And like,
She seems to agree.
yeah. But I did like that in the presentation, they showed a couple of people who could impersonate Sukarno, and they were actually pretty impressive. So you were thinking like, okay, Sukarno was, I mean, yeah. But it's not like they then go on to explain the entire point of the nationalists or something. But they don't try to cut it out or something. So it could be worse. It could be worse.
Okay. Right. Just 2 seconds. Bebe.
Bebe.
Sleeping? Have you
No, I don't.
no clips? You have no clips to
No.
show? Okay, because you didn't succeed. Subtitle. Okay. So we forget about it. Yeah. That's okay. Forget about it. Yeah, no, it was last week. She made a presentation, but on a very interesting film with the naked and the dead. But she has not many clips to show because subtitle or availability of the film there was a problem about it. So I was wondering if maybe we could see other clips, but apparently not, because I have a copy, but it's all in French, not only subtitles, but spoken French. So it's useless. So we forget about it, we just forget about it. And we are very sorry about it. And one last thing, it's a call to those who are able to use the internet in Chinese. I talked a few days ago with Professor Chu. You know who Professor Chu is, my colleague in this department. And okay, he was asking me about the course, and I told him we are just working on comfort women. And he remembered, suddenly, he remembered that sometimes ago, as vague as this, on the channel, unidentified Taiwanese channel, he saw a very interesting interview with a woman, old woman from Python, the southeast part of the island. And this woman was telling about her life at the time of the war as a comfort woman, because in Python there is an very important air base, which already existed at the time of the colonization by Japan. So there was a comfort station there, and she was in this comfort station. And she was saying, remembering about a day at the end of the war, as so from this base, kamikaze pilot had to go for their last mission, since it's in the south of the island. And so she had to spend, she told all this story, she had to spend the night with one of these young pilots, 19 years old, because it was like the gift from the Japanese army to this sacrificed pilots. So, and she was saying like, okay, please spend the night comforting each other, two victims of the war, saying, okay, this young guy, he had not really a lot of sexual appetite at the time. He just wanted to be comforted, but for right comforted. And okay, they just talk on talk. And I find it's a very beautiful story. So if somebody could find this thing, but it's very big. So I almost sorry, someday on some Taiwanese channel. So you have to know Chinese first, and you have to know how to surf and navigate. And maybe if somebody can find it, I would be very pleased. That was the story. So you can spend the night on it. Okay, see you next time.